Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. My husband, 38 male, and I, 33 female, just bought our first house. My husband has a pretty high-paying job. I work and make a decent salary, but our budget to buy our house was definitely influenced more by his earnings. We had his family over last week. Generally, I loved his parents. They've always been really good to me, and they're fun. I have not spent as much time with his sister outside of holiday gatherings, but we do have her son, husband's nephew, stay with us for a week over the summer the last few years, so I know him well too and love him. So everyone mentioned above comes over and we show them around the house. At one point, I'm showing sister-in-law a kitchenette in the basement, and I say something like, "It's great that our house has this space now, so if you want to visit us, you'll have basically a separate apartment." And she goes, "Our? Is it also your house?" I'm immediately confused, but also, I guess she could have assumed my husband bought it on his own. I said, "Yeah, we bought it together." And she goes, "Do you think you deserve to own half of this house?" I don't know. I just think that's crazy. I was shocked, and I mostly panicked, said, "Well, I do, yeah," and fled the basement. I immediately told my husband, away from his family, and he in turn immediately went to talk to his sister. I went to hang out with his parents and didn't say anything to them, but then we heard shouting outside. My husband and his sister were yelling at each other. I know people are different with their siblings, but I've never really heard him yell before. I could hear him tell her that we don't have a prenup, and she called him an idiot. I had to tell his parents what was going on. They went and intervened, and left pretty quickly with his sister and nephew, who didn't hear any of this, through the magic of video games, I think. His mom said sorry to me on the way out. I did touch base with my husband, and he was livid, like way more angry than I'd expect. He told me that before we got married, his sister was the beneficiary of his life insurance, and he thought she was angry over essentially being removed from all his assets. But we've been married 3 years. She apparently had texted him about being added onto the house paperwork a few weeks ago during the buying process, and he'd just ignored her. His parents have reached out to me and have been very sweet, apologetic, but they really want to fix things and have asked if I'll talk to sister-in-law. I'm trying to step away from it and just say it's now between my husband and his sister. Is that fair? Of course, I'm a bit hurt by her saying that, but at the end of the day, if she has problems with how he's handling his assets, that's between the two of them, right? I feel really bad because his family has always been so sweet, and I really love his nephew, so I also want things to be fixed. Edit. Wow, this blew up a bit. I will make an update. We have plans to chat about it today and speak with his patents and figure out how we want to go forward. I agree with essentially all of you, and I'm not planning to discuss it with her until she apologizes. And to answer some common questions. Nephew's dad is not and has not been on the picture for a long time. Sister-in-law has been in and out of relationships with not the best types of dudes. She is younger, and there's no other siblings. Yes, there's been a pattern of her getting more help from their parents, but it's because she really needs it with being a single mom, and my husband has always been pretty independent. I promise I don't tell every person on the street about our lack of a prenup. My husband did come into the marriage with a lot of assets, so I think when his friends and family expressed curiosity about a prenup, it was coming from a place of concern, care for him, and I love that, so it felt appropriate to share how we made that decision. No one ever pushed back. I've never talked to his sister about it, and I think she didn't know, but my husband sort of yelled it at her in anger in a "we don't even have a prenup" way. We are planning on kids, but could still keep up what we currently do for nephew, even if we did, and he just became an official teenager, so the college fund is close to complete. At this stage, we don't add much money to it anymore, it's just accruing. Oh, hell no. The audacity of OP's sister-in-law to ask if OP deserves to own half the house. In her own home. That's not just rude, that's deep-rooted entitlement and delusion. She seriously expected to be added to his house documents during OP's marriage. That's not sibling loyalty. That's gold-digging masked as family ties. OP handled it with way more grace than I would have. And OP is absolutely right to take a step back. This is his circus, his flying monkey. OP's husband is the one who needs to deal with her tantrum. OP doesn't owe her a conversation, especially not after that level of disrespect. And now let's hear community's opinion. What could you possibly say to your sister-in-law? I think you say that the issue isn't really about you. It's about how sister-in-law thinks everything that is your husband's is part hers. That's something your husband needs to set straight, not you. You just sit there and stay pleasant. You handled this perfectly. It's not your battle, and your husband has your back, clearly. Sister-in-law sounds insane. I get it. OP, you want things to be better, but you can't do that by yourself. You can only meet her in the middle, but she won't meet you there. She's selfish, greedy, etc. You can't change her character, and her character isn't good based upon what she said to you and what she did to her brother wanting to be put on the paperwork for the house. She wants and expects her brother to be her retirement account. She is beyond entitled, and that won't go away by just saying she's sorry, which I highly doubt she will, and if she does, she won't mean it. She'll just say it, because she was told to play nice. She isn't a nice person, OP, so you can't make things better. That takes both of you, and she won't join you at the party to make things better. First, please stop feeling bad. You did nothing wrong. Sister-in-law decided to go nuclear with you. Her behavior is not normal. Finances between you and your husband are none of her business. You just need to support your husband and let him deal with it. You've been very patient and fair. I'm not sure I could have held my anger at the blatantly rude and intrusive crap from sister-in-law. Update. After talking a bunch with both my husband and his parents, we figured out a few things. He didn't tell her that he's replaced her as the beneficiary on everything because he assumed she would know that. So she had texted him during the home purchase, "Hey, do you need my signature on anything for this new house?" He had messaged her back, "No?" She then essentially asked if the house was an asset set up like his life insurance. And he'd told her that everything is set up fine and that I'm on all of paperwork, and she's responded, "Okay." Mark. So I do think part of this is her truly not knowing how marriage is supposed to work, and she seems to have expected there wouldn't be any change. I found out she also mentioned this with their parents. Her main concern being that if something happened to my husband, I wouldn't help her son like we've been doing as a couple. Mother-in-law and father-in-law say they told her not to worry, and that I love our nephew, but that was what was going on behind the scenes before all this. Mother-in-law and dather-in-law also admitted that they may have unintentionally encouraged this, because they've always really encouraged their kids to support each other. But due to the various dynamics at play, what that ends up being is pressure on my husband, and a sort of "your brother will always be there for you" message to his sister. This was particularly strong in the last few years before I met and married him, because his parents thought he was planning to be a lifelong bachelor. They're not wrong in this. He definitely had that mindset at a time. And so then he and his sister really were, in their eyes, each other's lifelong person. So the last few years there had been this level of fallout I wasn't even aware of. Due to that, I also learned sister-in-law is in a not great financial situation. And due to past issues, the whole family essentially refuses to give her cash, but will do things like buy groceries or pay a phone bill. So she's been struggling and I think feeling a little desperate and jealous. Oh, of course, none of this is an excuse, and I'm not speaking to her until I get an apology. My husband has also said he needs at least a week or two before he speaks to her, but he does plan to. His parents are totally in agreement and understand. They are going to tell her that we talked about the dynamics at play and that she needs to acknowledge what is going on here and take accountability for her part in it. So hopefully that will kickstart things in the right direction. Being too understanding and too flexible has been a difficulty for me for a long time. Having feedback about how truly fucked up that situation was really helpful for me, so thank you. For me, there's a fine line between being unbothered and being a doormat, and I'm definitely working on differentiating those two.
A while back, I was dating a girl for roughly 2 years. I thought things were going great, but apparently she was just dating me because she liked to tell people she was in a relationship. No, that's how it went with her. The way she described me was too immature, decent in bed, and honestly not worth the rest of my life. Exact words she said to a friend of hers after we broke up. Anywho, I am getting ahead of myself. I went out and bought a ring, had this entire thing planned out to propose to her. However, she was suddenly not available for several weeks in a row. Well, my fears rang true as she suddenly showed up at my place one day. She acted like everything was normal as we talked, and she was grabbing everything that was hers. About halfway through, I just kind of looked at her and said, "Don't forget your hairdryer. It would be awkward to have to come back after you dump me." This sparked a long and awkward conversation where she was fake crying. I had realized right then and there that I was an idiot. The way she acted, the way she spoke, and the way she treated me just screamed that she did not care. I was devastated, but seeing her made me angry. I had realized she was lying to me this entire time. About a month later, a friend of hers called me up, asked if she could come over to talk. I asked why. She said my ex pissed her off and she wanted to tell me some things. My mind goes to horrifying things, like she needs to warn me I need to see a doctor, or things like that. Well, her friend came over and we chatted for a while. See, her friend was beyond pissed off, talking ending the relationship pissed off at her. So her way to get back at her friend was to sleep with her ex-boyfriend. Me being in my mental state, I said yes. More like I said, sure, yeah, we can do that if you really want to. So she ends up staying over for a few days as we get to talking about my ex. I tell her about the ring, and she had the best idea to get back at my ex. Let's lay down in bed and post a pic of ourselves with the ring in between us. Yeah, I thought it was a terrible idea, but I wanted my ex to feel like crap, so, well, there you go. Not even 2 hours later, my ex was at the door. We posted the picture at like 11 a.m., and she was at my place at 12:40 something. Right off the bat, she tried to act like breaking up with me was a mistake. She said that I was the best boyfriend she ever had, and she was getting scared with how serious things were getting. She said she made a terrible mistake in breaking up with me. Well, her friend immediately goes into a rant about my ex saying that she was manipulative and that neither of us would believe this sob story she was giving. Gotta say, I'm very glad her friend was there, because my stupid butt was believing my ex. I reminded her of how she treated me when she broke up and that she should go home. She was wasting her time. Well, now she brought up the ring, said she was owed it under the law, said that rings are gifts and that I cannot take it back. In unison, me and her friend said that I never gave it to her. We both looked at each other and laughed a bit, as the absurdity of the situation was getting outrageous. She said she was owed that ring and that she was not leaving without it. At about this time, a police officer came up the stairs wanting to know what the trouble was. I guess we made enough noise that neighbors called the police. The female officer asked what the situation was. Everyone tried to talk at once, and the officer shut us down, pointed to my ex, and asked her what the problem was. She said she was trying to pick up her stuff after we broke up. She asked me if it were true. I explained the situation, how my ex broke up with me before I had the chance to propose, and that she was never given the ring. Throughout the conversation, 2 more officers showed up, one a supervisor. The whole story was explained like 4 times. At one point, my ex said that the money from the ring will let her pay off her car. Ever see a moment when someone says something so outrageous that everyone looks at them in utter disgust? I responded with that the ring isn't expensive. It was bought used off a website. And I reminded her that I'm an IT tech. So this wasn't a ring that was 10 to 12K, more like 1 to 1.5K. The anger and rage that came over her face was immediately apparent to everyone. She stepped forward and punched me in the chest and kicked at me before being tackled to the ground by the female officer. The supervisor on scene told us to go inside while they get her under control. We did, and about 10 minutes later they came back. They wanted my statement. I told them I didn't want to press charges against her, but they said, yeah, it doesn't work like that. We saw it, so it's being processed. She ended up getting a misdemeanor offense for it. Also, engagement rings are the legal exception to the gift rule. In most places, it's a gift in contemplation of marriage. She would have had to give it back anyways. Supreme Court made a final ruling on this. The ring has to go back to the buyer or original owner if the engagement was broken. But if the wedding happened, even if it was a family heirloom, stays with the person who wears the ring. Since you never gave it to her, it was never hers to even touch. Money-grubbing little beep, beep, beep. I would have whispered to her friend, I'm going to pretend to give this to you. Then just tell your ex-girlfriend, no, there is someone who is much nicer than you and much, much better in bed. And then just hand it to her friend and go, here, try it on. Both of these people seem too immature for a serious commitment. Sleeping with your ex's friend just to hurt her is thoughtless. Posting a picture of it is vindictive and tasteless. OP seems like a sweet and sensitive guy, but he probably has some emotional growth to do. I, 23 male, Have two younger siblings, Anna, 21 female, and Chloe, 19 female. We've always been close. Our parents split up when I was 9, and our mom became pretty much a deadbeat. I've seen her maybe 5 times in the last 10 years. So my dad, 50 male, raised us, and it's pretty much always been us and him. Even after he started dating Fiona, 44 female, when I was 15, our dynamic stayed mostly the same, and there were pretty much no issues aside from some adjusting. Chloe recently moved out after living at home for her first year at college, and a few months later, my dad announced that he and Fiona were engaged and going to get married. In my opinion, everyone expected this would happen since they were together so long, but Anna was very upset. She's been complaining to everyone about it for weeks, but mostly me. She says it's like he was just waiting for us all to grow up and get out of the house so that he could move in his new woman and be a family with her instead. She also doesn't like that there's an almost 7-year age gap between them, because he and our mom were high school sweethearts and our mom was actually a few months older, so she feels like our dad is replacing her with a younger model. Side note, she's never liked Fiona because she was still hoping my parents would get back together when he and Fiona started dating. Mom was less of a deadbeat then. Anna also thinks there isn't much passion between them, because every time she was at our place, they barely touched and just treated each other like polite acquaintances since we were kids. She also doesn't see why he has to move her in before they're even married, because Fiona is financially well off and doesn't need the stability. She wants to be able to spend this summer with just our dad and us, without anyone else moving in yet. She told me the other day that she's planning on trying to set him up with one of her friends' single mom instead, who she feels is much more age-appropriate and likable than Fiona, and whom she thinks he'd have more chemistry with. She's planning on telling him this weekend and wants me to back her up. I just lost my patience and told her to leave me out of this, and that she's ruining his life by trying to set him up on some blind date as if he's a child. She started crying and told me all she wants is what's best for him because Fiona's the wrong woman and he's making a mistake. But I said I don't see how this would help when he's already engaged and that she's being stupid. She called me an a-hole for being so harsh and hasn't talked to me since then. I admit, part of me is also bummed that we won't have as much of my dad's time anymore and that things are about to change dramatically. So I wonder if I should have been more validating or supportive of Anna. But I just don't think our dad did anything wrong or that talking him out of this will do any good. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add. The main reason I'm second-guessing myself is because I too would love another summer with just our dad. But I have my own place now, so it's not like I have nowhere to go if things get unbearable with Fiona here. I don't think they will. She's always let us kids do our own thing. So it's not that big of a deal to me. I also do see where Anna's coming from about him and Fiona not being very romantic in front of us. Our parents were much more touchy-feely. I don't know if this means she's the wrong woman or not, but to be honest, since my dad doesn't seem to care, I don't either. I don't see her as another parent or anything, but we've personally never had a problem with each other, and I don't think Chloe does either. I do agree my dad deserves to whatever he wants to be happy at this point. Not the a-hole. Your sister needs to stay in her lane and accept that your dad can make his own decisions. Sis needs to grow up. Honestly, her arguments sound like that of a little kid. This is the dad's long-term partner. He was kind enough to wait until his last kid left the nest to focus on his happiness. He sounds like he respected his kids, so he didn't force his relationship or PDA onto them. The age difference issue is not one. If they have only seen their mom 5 times in 10 years, then it is obvious dear old mom is not a factor. And it is just flat-out disrespectful to actively try to introduce the dad to some rando woman when he has been with his chosen partner for 8 years. Sis is being selfish. She is an adult. This man raised his kids and deserves happiness, not the a-hole. Who the heck would try to set up their father with another woman? Are we playing Ken and Barbie? He is a grown-up, and she should be happy he won't be alone when all of you have their own lives as is already starting. And the fact that they waited till all of you were not living at home anymore, showing so much respect for your feelings. She treats all this like crap. I tried talking to Anna once more about not doing this blind date thing, but she refused. So, as folks suggested, I went and told my dad I had to warn him about something. Here's where I maybe messed up a bit. Fiona was there, and maybe I should have said it privately, but there was no time. He asked what was wrong, and I just couldn't get the words out. So I said it's about the engagement, and that it was best he heard it from Anna. Well, of course he went to her room to get her. We all sat in the living room, Chloe was already watching TV there, and after some coaxing from him, she just exploded and started crying it wasn't fair. Things were happening too fast. He just decided to get engaged without even consulting us, and we were supposed to just go along with it like we're still children. She said we never consented to our mom leaving us and had no say in them getting back together, so that we should at least have a say in who he started dating next. Please note, this isn't what I personally feel. Anyway, my dad just looked shell-shocked. Seeing his face made me feel god-awful. He looked silently at Fiona. She suddenly burst into tears. This scared me because I've never seen her cry. My dad's rarely weepy, and I've even seen him cry more. Dad held her hand and she just kept sobbing. I told you. I felt worse. One nice thing was Chloe got emotional to see this, so she actually went over and gave Fiona a hug. I felt like doing it too, but thought it'd be weird. My dad hugged Anna and said he was sorry he never realized how she felt. He said it's too late to set him up with anyone. I managed to have Anna add this. If he was going to be with anyone, it would be Fiona. But if this engagement was really hurting her, the two of them would talk about whether it can be postponed. He did say it's a done deal she's moving in this summer though, since she already ended her lease and made arrangements. Long story short, he arranged family therapy. Fiona actually suggested it and said she was willing to participate if it would help. I don't think I need therapy, but I think I'm going to do it just to help. Chloe agreed and Anna hasn't said anything since this happened, but I think that's a sign she's accepted it. Things were okay for the rest of the evening. Thank God, no blind date. Dad asked if I was okay and thanked me for doing this. He said he was proud of me. I teared up. He and Fiona sat on the porch for the rest of the night with his arm around her. I'm honestly relieved. Things have been calm since then. Anna's still quiet, but at least she's not avoiding us or objected to therapy. The first one starts early July, and he booked it for just us four for now. Edited to add. While it's true my dad never asked us for permission to date Fiona, I remember him saying many times that he was starting a relationship, and that his biggest hope was for us to be okay with it, and if not, he'd do whatever it took to help us get there. We weren't necessarily thrilled, but I know none of us had objected. Though maybe Anna just didn't think it would stick, I don't know. I just don't think they should have postponed the marriage, but if that's what everyone sees fit to do, I won't object. Edited to add 2. Just want to clarify, my dad and Fiona are still engaged. No one's called off or postponed the marriage yet, which I'm glad about. Postponing was just something my dad suggested in order to take more time to help Anna if it was needed. But they're definitely still getting married, and he made it clear he'd never marry anyone but her. I did make it clear during the whole confrontation that these were just Anna's thoughts, and I don't share them. So, for context, I have hair that is significantly longer than the average person. I get compliments about it all the time, and even though it's a hassle looking after it, I really do like it. My friend, who we'll call Kate, lost her mother to cancer before we met. I don't know the full story, but apparently she used to have hair as long as mine until she shaved it all off. Kate and I haven't been friends for long, but I really thought things were good between us, until Kate pulled me aside one day to ask me for a favor. I asked her what favor it was, and she said she wanted me to cut my hair to at least just past my shoulders, because it looked so much like her mom's. I thought she was just making a really bad joke, but it turned out she genuinely wanted me to do that. She said it was just bringing back her trauma to see my hair, and that she didn't know if she could keep being friends with me, as well as the fact that she really only asked because we were such close friends. She said she wanted to ask from the moment our friendship began, but wanted to wait since it would be weird if she asked then. I told her that I was sorry, but that I wouldn't be doing that. I love my hair. Here's where I might be the a-hole. I told her a few reasons as to why I loved having long hair, and one of them was about how much I resembled my mother. Immediately, I felt bad because of the awkward timing of the comment, and tried to tell her that I wasn't making fun of her for not having a mom or anything, but this seemed to make her more mad. She started screaming and crying about how she thought she could trust me, and how awful I was for gloating at the fact that my mother is still alive. I tried diffusing the situation, but it clearly wasn't going to work out, so I just ran out. Recently, I've been getting calls and texts from our friends about how disgusting I am, and it turns out Kate told them that I keep reminding her of her mom, and even once said I look more like Kate's mom's daughter than Kate. I've tried explaining the truth, and most of my friends have sided with me, but a few don't believe me and are saying I'm a witch and that I should just cut my hair anyway. along with a comment or two about how hopefully I get to experience not having a mother soon. Edit. I thought this would be worth mentioning. I did bring up the fact that I'm not the only long-haired person in the world, and that many people in my culture have long hair, and she countered it by saying that whilst that's true, she lives in a predominantly white neighborhood, and it's rare to see hair as long as her mother's or mine. So, should I just do it even though she went behind my back and changed the story? I feel like if she wasn't still grieving, she wouldn't have done that. I kind of get it to an extent, because I myself went through something quite traumatic, and now I can't look at a very popular drink without getting flashbacks, just because I had it in my hand at the time. But at the same time, I don't demand for store owners to stop selling them or anything. So why should she demand for me to cut my hair? And surely long hair isn't the only thing that reminds her of her mother. Double edit. For those saying I should cut her and the people who sided with her off, I totally hear you. Those friends had no right to act that way. But to me, Kate is just someone who is handling the loss of her mother poorly. So now I'm not sure what to do with my hair and what to do with our friendship. Not the a-hole. If she has trauma, she needs therapy, not for all people with hair like her mom's to cut their hair. Not the a-hole. The world can't protect her from all of her triggers. It's your hair. She needs to address her grief, not force people to help her ignore it.